And so I want to talk about something I'm very excited about called Conjured Ink. So I talked a little bit about this earlier, Conjured Ink, and I want to talk about it in more detail. Conjured Ink is really only a kind of project that could only come out of Blue Sky. And I mean that in the most positive way. It's actually a really cool, excellent thing that's being worked on. So Conjured Ink, let me go through the platform a little bit. They actually put together their roadmap specifically for my stream. So shout out to them. They got it done ahead of time for the stream. So Conjured Ink says, it is not a platform. It's a network of independent websites where creatives can host and sell their works and make meaningful human connections. Where there is art, there shall be titties. It's designed to sell your work, even if it's NSFW. It's resistant to puritanical campaigns that try to take entire sites down by bombarding them over one individual's content. We're writing a love song to the indie web. We want to make hosting your own little indie shop accessible without needing any knowledge about techie stuff that you can then customize or not to your heart's content. And it's a free and open source and always will be. Modify it yourself or use someone else's custom changes. It's all available on Codeberg. Not selling anything, it's free. Selling something in a small shop, only pay payment processor fees. Will help you figure out how to keep your costs down. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Conjured Ink. I think this is something that everyone should be keeping a close eye on. I think it's a really cool project because basically what this project is promising is almost like a decentralized itch.io is kind of the best way I would put it. So I'm going to read through a little bit about how it works. I think actually, let's see. So I'm going to go through their whole FAQ. I'm going to read it for you and explain things as I go. Because I think for a lot of folks, Conjured Ink, they might not really understand what it's supposed to be. And I want to explain to you what it's supposed to be. So, Conjured Ink is a community of creatives, developers, and supporters building software support structures and curated and reviewed documentation to make it easy for people who make things to be able to share it or sell it independently without relying on large platforms for their livelihoods. Raven said, just got the top clipper badge through cheaty underhanded methods. Ew. I like I'm making my own NeoCities website. It is in the paper planning phases right now. NeoCities is great. I think NeoCities like leadership has been a little weird about some adult content, but the NeoCities platform itself is really good. All right, so origin story. This project, Conjured Ink, kicked off in the summer of 2025. Following a pressure campaign from the Australian activist group Collective Shout, payment processors strong-armed Steam and itch.io to remove content they found objectionable, an ill-defined moving target. This is not the first such pressure campaign. Many creatives, especially those whose media is NSFW or queer-focused, have faced a series of difficulties selling their work, moving from platform to platform as terms of service change. A few large payment processing companies exert an outsized influence on web commerce. Platforms like Steam and itch.io are a single point of failure. They present a large target, and if they willingly or under pressure alter their terms of service, it impacts all creatives. Conjured Ink, however, is not a platform. It does not present a large, inviting target for pressure campaigns and is built to be resilient. How does this work, and what are some of these terms you keep throwing around? What is a market stall? Market stall is our term for individual storefronts. A market stall is a standalone e-commerce site, think WooCommerce or Shopify, that can be run very cheaply or even completely for free. Excuse me. And easily, even for those without techie chops. What is a bazaar? Bazaar is our term for a collection of market stalls. Stall owners can register their stall with any number of bazaars, and bazaar owners can include these products in search results. So think of it like an outdoor artisans market or the vendor space at a convention. Bazaar curation may be based on factors like genre, topic, theme, science fiction, monster, romance, specific individuals, members of SFWA, a group of friends, demographics, or media type. Creatives and their media can feature in multiple bazaars since the curated content within bazaars will inevitably overlap. A romantic fantasy book by a queer BIPOC author may appear in a catalog for romantic fiction fantasy media and a catalog for queer BIPOC authors. This sounds like a web ring. Is this a web ring? It's kind of like a web ring. Bazaars will connect independently owned market stalls. The bazaar owners will be able to curate content based on criteria they choose, and market stalls will also be able to list the different bazaars their media appears in. So it is FOSS, free and open source software, able to download and use the Conjured Ink software for free, and anyone who wants to modify the software is welcome to do so. What about NSFW media? Not safe for work is a fuzzy subjective category. We use it to indicate media that major payment processors may object to, often but not exclusively due to explicit sex. Many consumers want NSFW material, others seek to avoid it. Conjured Ink aims to foster a culture of consent. Creatives make and market their work, consumers choose what kind of work they want to buy, and payment processors facilitate transactions, not censorship. So a lot of folks are probably wondering how exactly this will be beneficial to creators, so we'll read through that a little bit as well, and then I'll explain in my own words essentially how what they're building would work. So how does Conjured Ink protect against censorship? Individual creatives will manage their own market stalls, including agreements with payment processors if warranted by the media they create. This may mean working with high-risk payment processors specializing in adults/NSFW material. Bazaars will feature the market stalls of many creatives, but will not host content. If a payment processor objects to a particular creative's work, it will have no effect on other sellers. Conjured Ink decentralizes risk. We can't protect against all censorship, but we can help make the target smaller. How does Conjured Ink make my work discoverable? Creatives will operate their own market stalls, but those stalls can appear in multiple different bazaars. The more places your work is listed, the more potential buyers will see it. Bazaar curation will introduce a serendipity factor. How will you balance discoverability with safety? Tagging and other descriptive metadata can and has been used to attack or censor creatives, especially with tags like incest, rape, and taboo relationships. Tags which can indicate anything from explicit NSFW material to thematically heavy material to media of queer relationships to general content warnings. There is going to be a special CW tag protocol between bazaars and stalls that allows stalls to freely tag sensitive works, but those tags won't be visible when looking at the work page itself, since they will be treated separately. When searching on bazaars, users can ask to omit any works that match those sensitive tags from their search results through a user setting not on the search box, but they can ask for those sensitive tags. This means that someone trying to find stuff to report ban won't be able to do it by searching for those tags in a bazaar, but the folks with triggers who want to protect themselves will be able to. Ultimately, we cannot protect creatives from censorship campaigns. What we can do is reduce the size of the target. Anyone looking to remove all media tagged rape will have to target each individual stall owner rather than a single platform. That's a much more onerous task, potentially involving creatives from different nations and dozens of payment processors. They talk a little bit about some of the technical stuff. They're not using cryptocurrency, but I have chatted a little bit with someone from Conjured Ink, and they are really thinking ahead on this stuff quite a bit. One thing that they're really interested in is GNU Taylor. And GNU Taylor, I looked into a little bit myself. GNU Taylor is sort of like, so imagine if cryptocurrencies, like, the one good thing about cryptocurrency, right, is the ability to sort of sidestep payment processors to purchase something. GNU Taylor basically said, what if we took that core idea and ripped it out of the whole entire blockchain crypto nonsense and re-implemented it in a privacy-friendly way, in a way that made online transactions basically work directly with banks and sidestep all the nonsense that people traditionally have to deal with. And so one thing they are exploring is GNU Taylor. I'm very optimistic about GNU Taylor. I'll just tell you really quickly about it. GNU Taylor is a privacy-preserving payment system. I know Richard Stallman is a fan of it. Customers can stay anonymous, but merchants cannot hide their income through payments with GNU Taylor. This helps to avoid tax evasion and money laundering. The primary use case of GNU Taylor is payments. It is not meant as a store of value. Payments are always backed by an existing currency. Payments are made after exchanging existing money into electronic money with the help of an exchange service. That is a payment service provider for Taylor. When making a payment, customers only need a loaded wallet. A merchant can accept payments without making their customers register on the merchant's website. GNU Taylor is immune against many types of fraud, such as phishing of credit card information or chargeback fraud. In case of loss of or theft, only the limited amount of money left in the wallet might be gone. So if you look at here, there's an auditor over here, wire money, customer bank, wire money, merchant bank, and there's the exchange over here, withdraw coins, customer pay anonymously, deposit coins, and then the money is sent to the bank. It's almost like, imagine if the coin system we see in like DealSite or RPlay or whatever, the token system, was just a way to pay people in general. Like, that's basically what's happening. So, I don't know if that's okay. Yeah, Richard Stallman is kind of crazy, but still, he is a little crazy, high key. But GNU Taylor does look really promising because it's basically taking the idea of like the coin-based system and trying to bring it into taking credit cards out of the equation. And if credit cards like MasterCard and Visa and the payment processors they work with are the most censorious, well, you can have GNU Taylor essentially just be this one big token system where you're able to anonymize payments while also, again, fighting back all these issues like fraud. So this is something that they're also interested in exploring. I know that they've also been having conversations with high-risk payment processors. So Conjured Ink is really kind of on top of the ball with this one in terms of trying to think one step ahead and not just necessarily, like trying to be like itch.io but decentralized. They're thinking about like how do we make this more, how do we prevent censorship on this sort of decentralized approach? So the way I understand, well, we'll read a little bit here about the specs. So Conjured Ink software will be free to download and use. Setting up a market stall may be free or low cost like any other website. The current stall software is able to run well within the bounds of the free tier for a hosting provider like Fly.io and about $5 a month for DigitalOcean. It's also able to run with plenty of room to shine on a $30 Raspberry Pi Zero that you keep in your closet. We're developing a toolkit to help our user base choose the payment processor that makes sense for them. Our volunteers are researching a variety of options, looking at pricing, terms of service, regional availability, and so forth. So they've chatted with me a little bit about this. They really know their stuff at Conjured Ink. They're not just kind of like figuring this out as they go. Like they do have a good sense of what might be trustworthy. The short answer is if you're creating media unlikely to run afoul of the restrictions imposed by major players, you're probably best off using standard payment processing. If your media does fall into a category they consider high risk, then unfortunately your options become more narrow, specialized, and more expensive. What if no payment processor will work for me? While we'll attempt to help you find a payment processor, our approach relies upon at least one of them agreeing to have you on board. If your media isn't accepted by anyone, or if prospective payment processors are not available in your region, then that's a bigger problem that we're not equipped to solve. They are working on different opportunities and solutions to this issue, trying to like kind of take the payment circumstance outside of just Conjured Ink alone and working with like specific high-risk payment processors. GNU Taylor is one such example where they're looking into GNU Taylor as a potential alternative. They're also like building out essentially ways to do like kind of third-party purchasing off anything related to Conjured Ink, and then you kind of like confirm that purchase was made to receive the files. So they also are thinking ahead of this in terms of like, what if more censorship occurs? What if like someone's selling something that can only be kind of purchased through like Cash App or so? So they're thinking about this. I think the whole mining centers that private capital entities have made for crypto, it is better when people mine small amounts of the influence of big money. I think it's just like, I think the core thing that people still consider good about crypto is the privacy, the supposed privacy aspect, and like sidestepping like involvement of payment processors and credit card networks. But unfortunately, you know, crypto is not even fully private. Like you can still ultimately track someone's identity on the blockchain with a little bit of work. And it's just crypto, what it could have been versus what it actually is are two very different things. It's sort of like that idea of like, I've mentioned on this channel before, like people like to like just this general concept of like who you are, looking in the mirror and accepting what you are right now versus an aspirational idea of what you could be. Like people have an aspirational idea still in some cases of what cryptocurrency can be. They think it could still be like this privacy sort of vanguard. But the reality is cryptocurrency has been completely just like turned into like this big scam cesspit. Like it's just toxic now. Anyhow, Ruko, glad they're upfront about what they can manage to help with and that they're trying to figure out solutions regardless. So would buying these coins not be subject to restrictions from Paypros? There's no payment processor involved in GNU Taylor. There's no payment processor. No one here is a payment processor. There's the bank and the bank. That's it. Everything is done. Everything else done through GNU Taylor. You could treat it as like a payment processor, sort of. But it's almost more like ripping out a coin system from DL site and implementing it. This is the closest to... I personally think GNU Taylor, we'll see if it takes off, how it develops, but I personally think GNU Taylor is the closest thing that we're going to have to like an alternative payment processor in some shape or form. So how are the coins bought? Through the bank. You wire money. See? It's all through your bank. I make payments and process your videos, Anna. Oh, well. Agonia Independence. What happened? Agonia go rogue and Left 4 Dead. Yeah, it's direct from the bank. Yeah. Well, you wire the money. That's how it works. So, withdraw coins, pay anonymously, deposit coins. And I like to think of this sort of like, this is almost like they created a system not that different from like how a lot of purchasing with Bitcoin traditionally has happened, but making it more anonymous and just not affected by the scamming nonsense that's happened with crypto in recent years. It's gonna take time though. I mean, like something like this, adopting it, whether people are down for it or not, will. I do think it's promising though. I think we'll see if this gets implemented more, but I think this might be the solution. I think this might be the thing that like places start to implement as an alternative to Paypro censorship. Like just sidestep credit cards and just do it through the bank. Plus there's the anonymity factor, so it's not like the bank is being told like coin was used to purchase, I don't know, like Fuda non-con mommy dom big sis little sis 2025. Like they're not being told that. They're just being told that coins were purchased and coins were, just being told that there's a purchase and a deposit to Gnu Taylor. Alrighty, so so they want to have initial version of Market Stalls Raid before the end of 2025. Let's see. Let me explain a little bit about essentially the way Conjured Ink works as I understand it. This is how I understand it. So basically, imagine these circles, right? These circles. These are like, what do they call them? Like the stalls. So these circles over here are the market stalls. Okay. And then the bazaar is like over here. See if there's anything else I'm missing in this equation. So bazaar. Yeah, okay. So basically what happens is like over here, over here, over here, over here. And they're like connecting to the specific bazaar. But the bazaar has no content on it itself. It's just it's almost like just a web ring to discover all the different stores. And so like this store over here might work with like PayPal, maybe theoretically. Maybe this one is like a high risk Paypro. Maybe this one is like free. And maybe this one is like off-site transactions. But none of the content in any of these places here is hosted by the bazaar, right? So imagine sort of like if Itch.io exists in a way where Itch.io was just a way to find a bunch of various websites. Itch.io didn't host the content. Itch.io didn't do any of the payments. All it was just a way to vibe and find a bunch of different, content creators. Almost like what Grapheon is, right? Where Grapheon will point you to various Patreon creators based on, top adult game section, top like music or whatever, but it doesn't host the content. It just points to it. Reddit also would be a good example too. Reddit doesn't host like, for a lot of audio erotica, for example, on Reddit, like it's not actually being hosted on Reddit. Like it's being hosted on like Whip or Soundgasm or Hot Audio. So what's happening in these instances is the content is self-hosted completely. You run your own server, you run your own instance, and then you have different and various deals with payment processors. So as a result, PayPal over here, if PayPal takes issue with someone over here, well, everyone else is fine because PayPal just has issues with this one specific store. Obviously, it's bad for that specific store, but PayPal's not even working with this guy over here. PayPal has no jurisdiction. No one knows what's going on over here. It's all offsite. And then this thing is free, so it's never going to get censored. But this stuff is all self-run. Now, obviously, it's still if you run it locally in your house, your own server, that's going to face much less potential TOS risks at all, compared to running it off of DigitalOcean or something, which will have based on hosting server instances. It's it's an online server instance for website hosting service. Your specific website host might have specific guidelines and rules about what kind of content they want hosted on the sites that they provide servers for, or the servers that they provide for your sites. But if PayPal gets knocked down over here, that's not going to be an issue for these folks over here. They're fine. These folks over here, they're fine. These folks over here, they're fine. But if they're all part of the Succubus Fuda Bazaar, then the Succubus Fuda Bazaar, it just exists to pinpoint and point you to these various stores. It doesn't exist to host the content. Itch.io, I will show you an example of the way Itch.io works. So now that you've seen that, and remember, in this instance, we'll say circle equals dev, and then equals itch. Itch's grand flaw with hosting adult content is this. Right? Itch hosts everything. Everything is hosted by Itch. How you get the content is on Itch. It's on their web servers. It's on their sites. So if PayPal doesn't like this one person over here, who's maybe doing, I don't know, Fuda non-con incest visual novels, PayPal, whatever payment processor that's upset, is then going to come over to Itch.io and say, your whole entire site has to get rid of that content. We don't like that one person was selling it, so your whole entire site, we cannot process any payments for that content. So this affects the whole entire Itch.io content ecosystem. What Conjured Ink essentially is doing is saying, look, we are taking all of this stuff and we are moving it out of this structure while still keeping some element of this decentralized intact. The way I would think of Conjured Ink is it's almost like the Mastodon to Twitter. The Mastodon of Blue Sky, except it offers this ability for popular artists to say, this is where you can safely get my content. So I think the discoverability factor through artists that start using Conjured Ink and allow it to expand allows this to be an engineered solution in some ways to payment processor censorship. Now, is the end goal ultimately to try to get MasterCard and Visa to stop censoring content? Yes, because we are always going to use huge corporate ventures like Steam and stuff. But for independent content creators, for independent artists, for anyone that's especially doing any of this stuff as a hobby and is just trying to sell their stuff at a decent cost, Conjured Ink is really good. And for allowing some sort of alternative to emerge, Conjured Ink is really promising. It's really cheap to run the software. That's their main plan, is to make it affordable and easy to do. And also, it will allow friend groups, artist groups to come together and sell their wares. So, and would they be able to scale this sort of thing up to support farming ventures, potentially a breeding farm? You sat on that for 2 whole minutes. You sat as I was doing this info dump for 2 minutes being, yes, I can't wait for Anna to see my comment. Fucking, yeah, the breeding farm's happening on Conjured Ink. There you go. Might keep discussions of, say, percentage of the marketplaces owed for hosting content out of the conversation since they're more of a directory than a warehouse. Yeah. Talk about how the form of the Conjured site will work versus itch and also girl kiss. So the issue of crypto is slow as fuck to process, like hours today compared to credit card, which is seconds. So is this thing where you're trading to a coin, then moving coin back to money going to be fast? I don't know the actual speed of Taylor. I haven't used it yet. I just I know Conjured Ink is really interested in it, and trust the Conjured Ink folks. They are not spring chickens on this stuff. They are pretty knowledgeable about what they're not just doing, but also the actual landscape of this stuff. Like I've chatted with a Conjured Ink member, and they know what they're doing pretty well. So if Conjured Ink is interested in GNU Taylor, that's a good signal to me that GNU Taylor has the spark. I'm not really sure about the speed of transactions. Let me take a look. Stable, private, secure, Libra. I imagine it can't be that slow because you're basically just using it's basically just a microtransaction system. It's not like going through a blockchain. That's not how it works. So. They do say it's secure, fast, and easy payment processing using well-understood cryptographic techniques. But that's all I really see. I don't know specifics about time. It said milliseconds. Let me see. Go through features. Let me search up GNU Taylor milliseconds. Whoops, I spelled milliseconds wrong. Payments are cryptographically secured and are confirmed within milliseconds of extremely low transaction costs. There you go. The extra computation required in the customer's wallet is in the order of a few hundred milliseconds, even on typical mobile or tablet devices, and thus barely noticeable. Under practical. Ah, you were right. Okay. Ah, there you go. Is easy. I spelled milliseconds wrong. Lol. Is easy to integrate. Payments are cryptographically secure and are confirmed within milliseconds of extremely low transaction costs. There you go. I think it's really promising. Again, I trust the folks at Conjured Ink. So for someone like them is like the equivalent of like someone with, it's people with experience on these issues coming in and saying, we think GNU Taylor is good. So I do have a lot of trust in them. A lesson I personally learned from anti-communist narratives and circles is power of a name is never to be underestimated. If you're talking about Massacre and Visa doing censorship, it's important to know the names of any party involved, as they never stop with just one agenda. In this case, censorship. Well said. Endlessly big. Well said. But yeah, GNU Taylor seems pretty promising. If you go on Wikipedia, you can learn a little bit more about them as well. GNU Taylor does not use a blockchain. A blind signature is used to protect the privacy of users as it prevents the exchange from knowing which coin is signed for which customer. Just a little additional Wikipedia information. Projects led by Florian Dold and Christopher Grothoff of Taylor Systems SA. Taylor is short for the Taxable Anonymous Libre Economic Reserves. It alludes to the Taylor coins in the Holy Roman Empire during the early modern period. As vocal support from GNU project founder Richard Stallman. Stallman has described the program as designed to be anonymous for the payer, but payees are always identified. In a paper published in Security, Privacy, and Applied Cryptography Engineering, GNU Taylor is described as meeting ethical considerations. The paying customer is anonymous, while the merchant is identifiable and taxable. An implementation is provided by Taylor Systems SA. So it's existed for just a couple months. In May 2025, Taylor operations entered Switzerland, coinciding with the 1.0 release. I think it could be a really good alternative to what a lot of people want the blockchain to be. I think GNU Taylor could be. Hey Zayla Felina, thank you for lurking. So I'm optimistic about GNU Taylor. Anyway, so looking a little bit at Conjured Ink's plans. So it nears its first beta, and they'd like to share a roadmap with us for the next 2 quarters. Huge shout out to the Conjured Ink folks because they did highlight this. They did get this done ahead of time for the stream today. So thank you to the Conjured Ink folks because I really like what they're doing, and I feel like it communicates really well what their long-term plans are. So coming up for December 2025, the start stage 1. So they have a light dark mode, embedded buy buttons, custom theme uploads, custom domain support and customization for stores, single payment processor support, transaction history, cart management, custom products, multi-currency support, compliance with geo-blocking by IP address for NSFW, multi-language support for communication, custom blog pages, newsletters, miscellaneous backup restore site data. Stage 2 for March 2026. Their plan for then is Insight custom themes, discount codes, digital gift cards, age verification system support, comment threads, newsletters in site, payment processing plugin support. And then from there, oh, okay, that's the current game plan of Conjured Ink. I'll say as well. Boop 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 boop. Where is it? In case there's anything NSFW, I'll put this down here. So right now, Conjured Ink also... Where is it? They're also getting some funding through Open Collective. So this is their Open Collective page. You can contribute. There's a wide number of memberships you can get. This is sort of like Kickstarter for them, basically, for their collective. So the collective operations is $100 per month. Estimated monthly budget is $692. Today's balance is $756. Yearly entity cost is $2,500 per year. And if you want to contribute, there's various contribution levels. You can be an individual sponsor. You can tip. There's these various like corporate sponsor roles as well in order to make it work too. So if you're interested, I really do believe in this project. The thing about Conjured Ink is that I've seen a lot of different attempts to sort of out-engineer this problem, but they never really seem to be thinking long-term about like, how do I protect content creators? They tend to be like repeating the same problems. They're trying to like centralize everything onto one server. They're trying to just like hope they get like ignored by like a content creator. I mean, by a payment processor, while trying to get content creators and game developers and etc. to use their sites. But Conjured Ink does seem to be taking like an approach where they're really trying to engineer a solution to minimize damage from payment processor censorship. Like, it's a good like harm reduction strategy they have going on, and it really feels like they're providing a potential opportunity for artists, developers, content creators to actually offer something that provides some future proofing from censorship. Again, the idea that like if one store gets hit, the other stores are not affected, that's really important and really good. And I think Conjured Ink is offering a potential pathway for the future. So I do recommend, if you're curious about Conjured Ink, go check out their Open Collective page. If you're curious about Conjured Ink, there's also, you can go to their Blue Sky and post this over here. And you can also go to their official page as well. I will say, personally speaking, I am going to be using Conjured Ink. I'm going to start selling some of my content on there. Like, I'm going to sell some audios via Conjured Ink, maybe some of my itch.io games that like have been there for a minute. I have so many notifications all the time. I'm also very lazy of my messages, like my Blue Sky messages. I never check anything. Like, I just miss stuff. Go support Conjured Ink. They seem really cool. I think they really deserve your money. I really trust the folks running it. I think they're not spring chickens. They know what they're doing. They're very tech knowledgeable, and they understand the issues that something that Conjured Ink would face. They understand those issues well. So, and I think they have a good sense and understanding of the landscape. So check it out. That's right, folks. Anna hates your Blue Sky. folks, do you need to understand? Like, I don't know when people like or retweet things on Blue Sky because I just have my notifications. I only check my mentions. I don't check like who follows me or likes or retweets. So sometimes I'll be like, oh my God, like this person I like followed me. I had no idea they even knew who I was. So that's really it.